House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made it clear the U.S. would not abandon Taiwan when she landed Tuesday night, becoming the most senior elected official to visit Taiwan since Speaker Newt Gingrich back in 1997. Joining me now to discuss the Speaker's visit, author of Winning Space, How America Remains a Superpower, Brandon Weichert. Brandon, welcome to the National Desk.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
So Speaker Pelosi said the world faces a choice between democracy and autocracy. America's decision to preserve democracy, she said, here in Taiwan remains ironclad. First, let's talk about the strategy. What was the strategy, do you think, for the Speaker's visit right now, some 25 years after Newt Gingrich? And then what message does it send to the rest of the world?
Well, the first thing is I think it's a tragedy that it took 25 years for another speaker since Newt Gingrich to go back to Taiwan. With that being said, I believe that Speaker Pelosi is probably looking back at her legacy. She has probably going to be the former Speaker of the House after this November, and she's probably going to retire. That's the rumor, at least. So this might be just her legacy shopping. And she does have a legacy, a history, whatever we may think of her, of being pro-democracy in China and being pro-Taiwan. So this sort of just the bookend of a long career in supporting that particular issue. So I do believe that this is her swan song. She's sort of doing this because this is probably her last time as Speaker of the House to do that.
And Brandon, then you got spokesperson John Kirbys saying the U.S. does not support Taiwan's independence. Certainly very mixed messaging here going on. What do you make of this?
Well, I think this is very tragic. I'm not a Democrat, but the fact that the Democrats are infighting over this issue only gives leverage to the Chinese, who are always looking to exploit gaps and cleavages in our united front against them. I think it's a tragedy because I think on this one issue, Pelosi was mostly correct. Maybe her timing wasn't the best, but she was right to do this, and it sends a signal to the region and the world that America's not going anywhere, and we will always stand with our friends. And I wish the Biden administration would get on board. I suspect the reason they're doing this way is because Biden is hoping to get a deal either on the environment or the economy or trade with China, and they don't want to upset the apple cart too much. But that ship has passed. We should be supporting Pelosi.
Speaking of Taiwan and speaking of timing right now, China has made threats saying the U.S. is playing with fire and the U.S. will pay the price. They did ramp up military activity. Taiwan said more than 20 Chinese military planes had entered its air defense zone last night. What do you think we can expect to see in the coming days?
Well, they've already announced in Beijing 4 days of live fire exercises over and around Taiwan. They've already, as you noted, moved forces around Taiwan. This is intimidation tactics. And so we can anticipate more of this. The concern, of course, is something goes wrong with their live fire exercises and actually hits somewhere in Taiwan, which could trigger a huge crisis. The way going forward, we need to make Taiwan a porcupine. We need to give them so much armaments and defenses that they are too hard for the Chinese to swallow. We've started to do that in Ukraine, but we're going to have to start allocating resources, limited resources, to Taiwan now, because China is going to make a move soon on Taiwan after this Pelosi trip.
I was going to say, in regards to that, Pelosi did say this, quote, Taiwan was facing deliberately heightened military threats, adding that it would not back down and that Taiwan will do whatever it takes to strengthen its self-defense capabilities. You know, with this kind of escalation, it's really hard to pull back. So what do you think we can expect will be the response from the White House today in regards to her comments and her visit?
Well, I think the White House, with Kirby's comments, have already indicated they're going to let China drive this thing in the aftermath. I think that's a huge mistake. China, we should be sending out diplomatic demarches. They've threatened in China, they've threatened a U.S. leader's safety. That is unacceptable behavior. We should be sending complaints and demarches to the international community about China. Then we should probably reciprocate. Reciprocity, as my friend Cleo Pascal says, reciprocity is absolutely important here. So if China's going to do this when we fly to an ally, a leader to an ally, we should do the same thing when a Chinese leader flies to one of their allies, like in Iran or North Korea. Next time a Chinese leader goes to one of those countries, we should say, hey, we don't like that you're doing this, so maybe we'll shoot you down. And we'll see how they like it in Beijing. What
kind of reciprocity do you expect to see between the White House's relationship with the Speaker's office?
I think it's going to be frosty, but I don't think Pelosi cares. Like I said, I think Pelosi's probably on her way out after this November. So she's looking for a legacy, and she doesn't care what the Biden administration thinks. And I think that's very telling, actually, that the Biden administration can't even get respect from its own speaker, let alone from the rest of the world. And that's the real important tragedy here.
Brandon Weichert, we appreciate your expertise and you joining us this morning here on the National Desk. Pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Hope we can have you back soon. Thank you.
I'd love that.